5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You blitz all night. And if they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm going to take every last one of you out.
Hey, the blitz is coming, boys.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Blitz, where I give you the latest and greatest in news, tips, tricks, and advice to get you ready for the fantasy football season in just 5 minutes or less. In this episode, we're covering the potential fantasy fallout for the Saints now that reports have surfaced of Derek Carr being expected to miss the 2025 season with a shoulder injury. But before we jump into the latest episode, make sure that you're following the Fantasy's Finest YouTube channel for the latest episodes of The Blitz. And you can also find The Blitz in audio format on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, let's get into this Derek Carr Saints situation. Recent reports have surfaced of the Saints quarterback Derek Carr dealing with what's being called a significant shoulder injury. In a report from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, Carr is currently weighing his options on how to proceed with the injury, even considering surgery. The injury is reportedly so significant that it could cost Carr his entire 2025 season. With the recent changes at the head coaching spot, with Dennis Allen being shown the door and Saints brass bringing in former Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore to be the new head coach, Carr's shoulder injury is certainly untimely. But there are two sides of this to consider. First, let's talk about the bad. If Carr does miss time or the entire season behind his injury, it will impact the skill players that the Saints have for fantasy football. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Alvin Kamara would be at the top of the order. For example, Chris Olave had a strong 3-week stretch, averaging 16.7 fantasy points per game from weeks 2 through 4 before injuries ultimately derailed his season because of concussions. Shaheed was the Saints' top deep threat for Derek Carr. Shaheed had 4 games over the first 5 weeks of the season with double-digit fantasy points, cracking above 15 fantasy points per game. His only dud that he put up over that span was going catchless against the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 3. Carr was the main driving force for Olave and Shaheed at the beginning of the season. And considering where you took Shaheed off draft boards, if at all, he was definitely a steal last season. Now, Alvin Kamara was a bit more steady with or without Derek Carr on the field, as his versatility as a rusher and a pass catcher created sustainable fantasy production. Over the first 5 weeks, Kamara was the RB1, averaging 23.8 fantasy points per game. When Carr went out for the next 3 games because of injuries, Kamara still managed to be a top 15 running back, the RB14 over that time, but his average dropped to 14.7 fantasy points per game. Carr returned in week 9, and from that point on until week 14, Kamara jumped back inside the top 10, averaging a strong 17 fantasy points per game. While Carr might not be considered an elite fantasy quarterback at this point in his career, his impact on the Saints skill players was apparent. However, the Saints find themselves with an interesting opportunity to get a new quarterback with the 9th overall pick in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. You might consider this to be the good part of the whole situation. With the expectation that Shedeur Sanders, a rookie quarterback prospect expected to fall out of the top 5 picks, could be in the crosshairs for the Saints. This would allow Kellen Moore to go get his guy and kick off the Moore era with the New Orleans Saints instead of being handcuffed to Dennis Allen's leftovers. Fantasy managers would have to temper expectations with a rookie coming in and being able to produce well enough to keep Chris Olave and others afloat though. With reports surfacing that the likelihood of the Saints taking a quarterback in the upcoming draft gaining steam, even more so with another rookie being mentioned as a Saints target in Jackson Dart, being one of those names floated around for the Saints, there's another scenario where a rookie quarterback steps in with Kellen Moore and the Saints. Now, we can't be too bummed out with a rookie coming in, can we? I mean, we have seen rookie quarterbacks come in and play well for fantasy football. Most recently, Jaden Daniels dominated fantasy football last season with the Washington Commanders as a top 10 quarterback. CJ Stroud was another rookie quarterback during the 2023 season that played above expectations, also finishing as a top 10 fantasy quarterback in fantasy points per game. With the NFL draft fast approaching, we'll get to see which way the Saints intend to address the quarterback situation. The fallout from that decision will determine the ADP of the Saints skill players heading into the new season. But that'll wrap it up for this episode of The Blitz. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Fantasy's Finest YouTube channel or on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you don't miss the next episode coming out. See you guys in the next one.
Yo, come back now, you hear?